Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. And we are excited to dive into the intersectionality of social emotional learning and climate anxiety. I'm Emily Sumner, and I'll be your host. Let's go ahead and get started. I do want to thank EdWeb and One Step for bringing this webinar here to us today. One Step is a video based, solution focused climate education supplemental curriculum for middle and high school students that helps reduce climate anxiety by empowering students to make changes in their homes, schools, and communities that can all have a big impact on the environment. So I appreciate Tom waiting so patiently here on screen with me. I'm excited to introduce him. Tom Roderick is an educator, activist, and writer based in New York City. He began his career in education through the civil rights movement in the 1960s and taught in Harlem and East Harlem for 10 years. For 36 years, he served as founding executive director of Morningside Center for Teaching Social Responsibility, which was started in 1982 by educators concerned about the danger of nuclear war. Over the years, he led Morningside Center to become a national leader in partnering with schools to implement high quality, research based programs in social emotional learning, restorative practices, and racial equity. Last year, Tom published an amazing book titled Teach for Climate Justice, A Vision for Transforming Education. He's going to share some tidbits from that book in today's presentation, but I really encourage all of you to read it cover to cover. So, welcome, Tom. I will go ahead and hand things off to you.
Thank you, Emily. And thanks to Suzanne and Regina and Diane and One Step and Ed Webb and all who have worked together to put this webinar on. And thanks to all of you who have joined us today. I know that all of you are very busy, and so I really appreciate that you've decided to spend this time with us. So today, we're going to be discussing social emotional learning, of course, and why it is essential for effective climate justice education. And then I'm going to be showing you how you can have fun integrating social emotional learning into your teaching, and in particular, your teaching for climate justice. I will offer 5 social emotional learning strategies that are especially relevant for addressing our students' needs at this time, and I'll provide classroom activities for carrying out each strategy. Global warming, species extinction, and inequality will be the primary factors shaping the lives of all students in school now and for the foreseeable future. They, in turn, will be called to shape the world they are growing up into. Through no fault of their own, their generation will bear a large share of the responsibility for saving what can be saved and putting humanity back on a better path before it's too late. How can we give them the tools they'll need to thrive in the turbulent and uncertain times they are facing? How can we prepare them to provide wise leadership for the global movement to turn things around? The short answer is we need to educate them for climate justice. And climate justice must have as its foundation social emotional learning. Cheryl is one of the teachers I feature in the book. She teaches middle school students in Brooklyn, New York. The first meeting of the Student Climate Club at her school drew 25 students, a much larger turnout than expected. Cheryl opened the meeting by asking, "Why did you come?" The students' replies echoed around the circle were, "We want to live." "I want you to live too," Cheryl told them. "I hope we can turn this around, and I'm going to work with you so that we can do our part to make that happen." Increasingly, climate anxiety and despair are affecting our young people. The 2022 Education Week Research Center survey found that 37% of teenagers feel anxious when they think about climate change and its effects, and more than a third feel afraid. Many also said they feel helpless and overwhelmed. As climate activist Greta Thunberg has said, her generation is grieving over the threat to their future and is enraged at adults for standing by while the house burns. The climate crisis affects the mental health of adults as well, especially those charged with parenting and educating the young. Cheryl reflects that she says, I have a big sense of urgency about the climate crisis. If you're informed and you stay informed, you're going to be overwhelmed by anxiety. Or you put your head in the sand, you put on blinders and go ahead about your business. But when you have children sitting in front of you and you understand what condition we're in, you have to take action. These kids know, they know, and it feels like a real betrayal not to join them in every way we can. To have them look you in the eyes and say, we want to live. And they know it's the truth, and I know it's the truth. It's a staggering responsibility. As educators, we're all too aware of the challenges many of our students are facing, whether directly through climate disasters or indirectly through news reports, adult conversation, social media, and science classes. The climate crisis will increase the pressure and anxiety many young people are experiencing. And this presents, of course, it enhances the challenge that we are facing as educators. The young people's feelings are not a mental health disorder. They are triggered quite appropriately by reality. The era we're living in has no historical parallel given the scale of the disruption and threat to life that scientists predict is coming, and that is already manifesting itself in the droughts, floods, and wildfires occurring around the world. How can we make our work as educators meet this moment? How can we prepare our children for this new, dangerous, and damaged world we have created for them? How can we give them the tools they need to thrive in the challenging years ahead and become active participants in shaping the world they are growing into? Action is an antidote to fear and helplessness, as Cheryl and her students acknowledge. But it's also critical that schools be places where students feel comfortable sharing their feelings, where they have trusting relationships with people who care about them, where they belong to a community that has their back as they try to make sense of what is going on in the world, and where they develop racial and cultural awareness and skills in standing up for justice. And beyond that, where they can find joy in linking arms with others in the fight for climate justice. Schools must nurture educators as well. They must be places that strengthen our hearts and support us as we offer our gifts of active hope. Enter social emotional learning, the foundation for effective climate justice education. Morningside Center, my organization that I retired from 4 years ago, defines social emotional learning as the process by which we develop our capacity to understand and manage our feelings, relate well to others, deal well with conflict and other life challenges, make good decisions, and take responsibility for improving our communities from the classroom to the world. Through social emotional learning, we create classroom and school communities where everyone belongs. We develop students' social emotional skills. We provide brave spaces where students can share their feelings and concerns. We show students how to disagree without being disagreeable. And social emotional learning helps us take care of ourselves so we can practice active hope and have the bandwidth to support our students in doing the same. Students imbued with social emotional skills will be able to build the trustworthy relationships and tenacious communities of support so necessary for resilience when the going gets tough. They will be able to feel their love, their anger, their despair, and their fear, and channel it into passionate, effective action. They will be able to exercise good leadership, solving problems creatively and nonviolently, inspiring trust, and building camaraderie. So as I said, we'll be introducing you to 5 key social emotional learning strategies and to fun, engaging classroom activities to carry those strategies out. In the webinar, I'll provide brief descriptions of the activities. Those of you attending the webinar in person will receive handouts with detailed descriptions of how to implement each of the activities with fidelity. Those viewing a recording of the webinar will soon be able to find the classroom activities on the website for my book, www.teachforclimatejustice.org. So the first SEL strategy that we'll discuss is engaging students in building a caring classroom community. And there are an array of SEL activities available to help you do that. So here they are, the 3 sets of activities. One is group games, fun ways to get students to know each other, and other community agreements. Students envision the classroom they hope for and take responsibility for creating it. And it's an activity for building classroom community called Have a Heart. So first, some group games. I'll just mention a couple of them. One very basic step for building community is for everyone to learn each other's names and pronounce them correctly. I have visited classrooms where students don't even know the names of all the other students in their class. So a simple activity for starters is a go-around in which students say their names and something they like to do that ends in ing. You can use this again and again with other prompts, such as something you like to do with a friend, something you like to do outside, something you like to do in the summer, and so on. So that's very basic. Here's another fun game with you and your students standing in a circle to the extent possible in your classroom. Throw a beanbag or a soft ball to a student. When the student catches the ball, the class shouts out, "Yes!" That student throws the ball softly and underhanded, of course, to another student, and so on until all have caught the ball and heard that resounding yes. Then once students are familiar with each other's names, the game becomes shouting out the name of the student who catches the ball. If a particular shout out is not loud enough, you'll need to say, we can do better than that, and do the shout out again, with you making sure it's loud enough. Next, we have community agreements. Instead of setting down rules for the classroom, you as a teacher can empower your students to envision what they hope for their classroom. You can invite them to propose community agreements and share responsibility with you for achieving their vision. It's actually a first practice for active hope, which we'll be talking more about later. Where in active hope, you envision what you hope for the world, you decide how you can contribute, and take steps to do so. So the handout describes a process for creating community agreements and in detail, including the students reflecting on what they value in a friendship, expressing their value through art. They decorate a pie plate with the name of the value on the pie plate, and they use that value to inspire their proposed community agreement. Finally, third activity is Have a Heart. Have a Heart dramatizes the negative impact of put downs and the positive impact of put ups. Teacher tapes a construction paper heart to their chest and tells a story of a young person who goes through their day experiencing put downs. Each time the young person experiences a put down, the teacher tears a piece off the heart. Soon the heart is torn pieces on the floor. How do you think this person is feeling? The teacher asks. Have you ever had a day like this? With another heart on the teacher's chest, the teacher tells the story again, with the student substituting put-ups for the put-downs. How is this person feeling now? What does this activity suggest for our classroom? A new agreement is added to the community agreements if it's not there already. Use put-ups, not put-downs. So strategy number 2 is teach students skills in active listening and understanding and managing feelings. Effective SEL instruction is skills-based. These are 2 of the skills young people need to learn and practice. To develop close friendships and be a good leader, you need to be a good listener. So we sometimes think of listening as a passive activity, but active listening is far from passive. It's listening so that the speaker knows you care and feels encouraged to say more. So one activity for developing student skills in active listening is we call it the 3 Ps. Pay attention, provide gentle encouragement, and paraphrase. Okay. So now, I don't know if you saw a cartoon in the New Yorker recently that showed parents at a teacher conference. The mother of the child was sitting in a chair with the teacher, and the father was at the chalkboard writing, "I will not check with my cell phone during parent conferences." The first activity for developing the 3 Ps of active listening is a role play in which you get a volunteer to stand with you and tell you something new and good in his or her life, right? And while the student is talking, you model poor listening. You look away, you fidget, you check your phone perhaps. After a minute or so, you pause and ask the class what they saw, the specific behaviors that showed you were not listening well. Call on a couple of students to name the poor listening behaviors. Then ask your volunteer if they would be willing to give you another chance. This time, as the student talks, use good listening skills, attention focused on the speaker, positive body language, one mic, etc. Ask the speaker how they felt this time. Now ask the students to suggest guidelines for good listening and chart them, right? And that chart goes up in the classroom, and so students can refer to that whenever they need to be reminded. And after you've done that activity, you role play, you have them get into pairs and practice good listening. For the 3rd P, You teach them, how to paraphrase. You model it, again, with a volunteer. The person speaks, you paraphrase what they said, and then you also give the students the opportunity to practice that in pairs. And of course, there are many opportunities for practice, for asking the students to pair up and share something. And that's not only is it helping them get to know each other better, but they're practicing this essential skill. Next, we talk a little bit about increasing students' vocabularies. This is very simple. Once again, you just write the word feelings on a chart paper, circle it, and just have the class brainstorm feelings words. And you create a web of feelings words and tell the students that you'll keep the web and post it in the classroom so that as other feelings words come up in discussions, songs, poems, and stories, you'll add those words to the web, and in that way increase students' feelings, vocabulary. Now, for cooling down strategies, again, you have the students brainstorm the cooling down practices that they use when they need to cool down. You preface it by saying that when feelings go up, especially when anger goes up, thinking goes down. And when you do get triggered and you're very angry about something, it's best to cool down, to pause, not that you're going to push the issue under the rug, but that you're just going to cool down so you can think better about how to deal with the situation. And in addition to brainstorming strategies they're already using, and of course students may learn from each other who are sharing their strategies, you also introduce the idea of self-talk, which is one of the best cooling down strategies there is. For example, you get triggered, you're angry, and you just say to yourself, I'm not going to let this person ruin my day and get me into trouble. So that's how we, those are some of the activities that we teach students to develop their social emotional skills. So the third strategy is providing brave spaces for students to share their feelings and concerns. Again, I'm going to share a story from my book. Jasmine teaches literature and composition with ninth graders in a high school in Beaverton, Oregon. She begins her classes with a check-in. How is your heart today? What do you need from the community today? The climate crisis comes up when there's been a climate disaster or they hear some bad news about climate on the news, she says. They want to talk about it. It's weighing on them. What concerns me most is that they're increasingly expressing a lack of trust in adults, not just government officials, but all adults. They seem to be saying, it's our future. Does anybody care? Well, Jasmine cares. The teachers featured in my book care. The great majority of teachers across the country care and care deeply, despite the challenging conditions in schools that make it hard to express our caring as fully as we would like to. But we need to show we care by making time for students to express what's in their hearts and to feel support from their teacher and their classmates. Jasmine has worked with her students to establish community agreements that make her classroom a brave space where students have the confidence they will be listened to with caring and respect. So in some cases, Jasmine might just listen to a few students share, and in other cases, if the event that occurred that's upsetting to the students is particularly upsetting, for instance, a devastating wildfire or a mass shooting in a school, a listening circle may be called for. And a listening circle is as useful and important for adults as it is for students. The listening circle handout has detailed guidelines. But here's the gist. These are the three activities for creating brave spaces for our students. So the first is what Jasmine does on a daily basis. She'll start the day with a check-in. How's your heart today? Now we'll look at listening circles when there's a particularly upsetting event. In this case, it's good for students or adults. By the way, we use this at Morningside Center for Teaching Social Responsibility. Well, we've used it a number of times, but one time in particular was after the attack on the World Trade Center. When things like that happen, the community needs to come together to share, and that's what a listening circle is about. So basically, you sit in a circle, explain that a listening circle is a chance to share thoughts, feelings, and concerns, that the participation is voluntary, that nobody's forced to be in the circle, and if somebody doesn't want to be part of it, and that sometimes happens, you find a place where that person can be comfortable while the listening circle goes on. You begin by asking the people in the circle to take turns sharing their thoughts and feelings with each other. Maybe give them like 3 minutes each to do that. And after the pair shares, then each person will now have up to 3 minutes to share with the whole group, going around the circle. Anyone can pass if they want to. When each person is speaking, the others in the group give them their complete and supportive attention, but don't comment. The circle finishes after each person who wants to speak has spoken, and you need to emphasize that what people say in the group is confidential. Depending on the size of your group and the depth of engagement with the topic, you may want to do an additional round or two. And as I said, this is important for a school community to do with the adults. If a very upsetting event has occurred somewhere that's having an effect on people, and also for the students. It helps prepare adults to do it with the students if they've done it themselves. So then, also want to mention some guidelines for responding when a student expresses feelings and concerns about the climate crisis. Jasmine actually has a policy of at lunchtime, a student wants to come and meet with her. She's available. Not sure she can do that every day, but she does that on a fairly regular basis. So it may be a student comes and sits and just brings up concerns about climate crisis. In other cases, it could just happen. Somebody, in the hallway or whatever. So maybe the students heard something on the radio or gotten some scary information and they're sharing their concerns. What do you do? So here are a few guidelines. Again, the handout discusses this in detail, but first thing is prepare for this eventuality by exploring your own feelings about the climate crisis. What's your stance toward it? What feelings does the crisis bring up for you? And prepare also by rehearsing what you would say if the young person, if a young person comes to you with feelings and wants to know sort of where you stand. So prepare, ask how they're feeling, or if a feeling comes through clearly in their tone of voice, acknowledge the feeling. Use active listening to gently and matter-of-factly draw out what they've heard, what they know, and where they've gotten their information. Affirm information you believe to be correct, but correct any misinformation. If the young person has questions, say that you understand why they're concerned and acknowledge that you're concerned too. Provide reassurance by saying that many people around the world are working hard to address the situation. Above all, respond so that you keep communication open. Thank them for sharing their feelings with you and say you're always ready to listen to what's on their minds. Okay, the fourth strategy is to facilitate productive conversations about controversial issues. Sometimes when students get into discussing a controversial issue or an upsetting issue, it devolves into a heated argument, including put downs and injuring the sense of community. So it's important to give students practice in disagreeing without being disagreeable, is what we say. And it's an essential part of building a community where all have a place at the table. We need to be able to disagree. It's not like we're just going to say, let's be nice and not let any kind of conflict come out into the open. The question is to handle the conflict in a positive way. Second, of course, active listening and anger management that we've already discussed are useful when a topic triggers strong feelings. And it's good for teachers to also have some practices for when a topic triggers strong feelings, because those hot topics with skill can be turned into wonderful teachable moments. So first activity we'll discuss is the opinion continuum. And this one is much fun. You make two signs, one saying strongly agree and the other saying strongly disagree. You post them in opposite corners of the classroom. And you explain that the purpose of this activity is to help students develop skills in expressing their opinions and arguing for them, in some cases passionately, right? While listening to and respecting others who have opinions different from their own. So tell the students that you'll make a statement, and they are going to get out of their seats and go to the appropriate place according to whether they strongly agree with the statement or strongly disagree or are somewhere in between. Once the students have taken their places, ask for volunteers from each location to explain their opinion. Encourage dialogue among students with differing opinions, reminding them that this is a good opportunity to practice active listening and abide by the class's community agreements, especially the agreement to use put-ups, no put-downs. If the discussion gets heated, you can cool it down a bit by asking students to paraphrase what they've heard before responding to an opposing point of view. If students change their, and another thing to note is that sometimes students will want to change their places after hearing the discussion back and forth, and that's fine. They can move to a different place on the continuum between strongly agree and strongly disagree. So choose statements that are likely to produce a wide array of opinions. Start with statements that are trivial and low stakes. For example, we often start with the statement, vanilla is the best flavor of ice cream. You'd be surprised how passionate people can get over that statement. But then you can move to topics that are more serious. For example, parents should put limits on the amount of time young people spend looking at screens. The handout suggests a number of possible statements. After the activity is over and students return to their seats, ask them how it felt to share their opinions and listen to other points of view. So the purpose of this activity, opinion continuum, is to basically get across the message that it's fine to have different opinions. It's fine to share those opinions and argue for them. And we can learn from discussions like that, as long as we listen with respect. And it prepares students then to follow those kinds of behaviors, to use those kinds of behaviors when a more challenging issue arises. So how can a teacher facilitate productive conversations in such a way as to turn them into teachable moments? Middle and high school students are aware of what's happening in the world, as we've discussed. If we provide brave and supportive classroom spaces where students can share thoughts and feelings, we can foster powerful feelings of group solidarity and priceless teachable moments. Here are some suggestions. So when a major event occurs that you know will be on students' minds, invite students to share feelings, thoughts, and reactions. When such an event occurs, Jasmine opens her classes, as we said, by asking, how's your heart today? What do you need from the community? So when she does that, things are going to come up, and different students, because they're used to sharing their feelings, and there's certain community agreements they created themselves to kind of guide the dialogue. Things are going to come up. So as they share their thoughts and feelings, listen and paraphrase and validate their feelings. Once the initial shock has passed and you've helped them process their initial reactions, then lead them to explore underlying issues and consider taking action. Provide accurate information. Don't let misinformation and stereotypes go unchallenged. Generate questions. Sort of emphasize asking good questions over right answers. And that helps prepare students for the complexity of the world and the wealth of information that's available out there. Zoom out to identify societal and historical patterns that may be at work. Mourn together. Honor those who have been lost or harmed in this event. And highlight acts of solidarity. As Mr. Rogers said his mother told him to do, look for the helpers. Finally, see if you can find a way for the group to take loving action. Your students may always remember how, during a time of trauma and turmoil, they found comfort in each other's company, felt connection, learned, and took action. So, how do we as educators have the bandwidth to work with our students? I think Cheryl really said it well. It's an awesome and challenging responsibility that we have, and we're carrying an emotional burden as we work with young people on a daily basis, many of whom are fearing for their future. And to be of any use to them, we need to take good care of ourselves. So there are regular practices that we can use to do that. So the first is to practice active hope. I mentioned active hope earlier in when the students envisioned the classroom and what they want their classroom to be, and then came up with community agreements and then are and take responsibility then for making the classroom what they want it to be. So it's not just the teacher who's doing it, it's the whole community working together. So that's what active hope is. It's envisioning what we hope for. Active hope is not optimism. It's envisioning what we hope for the world and discerning how we can best contribute to bringing that about, and then getting to work. It's not something we have, it's something we do. And it's an antidote to fear and hopelessness and despair, that we're in action doing what we can. And why are we doing it? Out of love for our children, for children around the world, for all the people around the world, for nature, for this wonderful planet that has served us so well. And it's one of the best ways to give ourselves the strength to go forward and help our young people. Second, just mention that a practice that I've done that's been a lifesaver for me over the last 40 years. It's called meeting with a listening partner. And it involves just working with a trusted friend, a spouse, a colleague, and just giving each other equal time on a regular basis. It can start with just 5 minutes each way. My listening partner and I give each other 43 minutes each way. Don't ask me how we got to 43 minutes. But it's been invaluable. It's just a time for listening and for crying and for yawning and for laughing. And my partner doesn't try to fix anything, doesn't give me advice, just listens, and then we switch, and I listen to him. And I use this with my wife, with other friends as well. So, again, the handouts describe in detail how to do these practices. So just to recap, to integrate social emotional learning into education for climate justice, we engage the students in working with us to build a caring classroom community. We teach them skills in active listening, managing feelings, and assertiveness, and problem solving, other things. Best practice in social emotional learning is skills-based. It's not just about talking. And they need to do it interactively. You can't learn skills, social emotional skills, if you're not interacting with other people. Third, brave spaces for students to share feelings and concerns. We need to make room for those and create those brave spaces for students, as Jasmine does. We need to be able to facilitate productive conversations about controversial topics. And that's where the opinion continuum and good facilitation on the part of the teacher comes in. And finally, to be of use to our students, we need to take care of ourselves. So, as Emily said, my book is available, and it's full of stories from the classroom. It's not a curriculum, it's a vision for education. The aim is to help shape curriculum. And there are lots of great curricula available out there, and those are listed on, along with the handouts that I've referenced today, on the website for the book, which is there.
Thank you, Tom. This was amazing. All of these practices are just so helpful and just a great way to empower ourselves as educators and also to support our students as they're wrestling with so many big issues, including climate change and climate anxiety. So I think this is so helpful. As Tom mentioned, we've got an amazing packet of resources that he's compiled, all of the worksheets to support these practices. So we're dropping that link into chat right now for you to download, and we'll also share it with you by email. I also want to share another resource with you from One Step. It's our community engagement guide, and it includes details and step-by-step instructions for 5 student-led solution-focused projects. that you can do with your students. They're designed to inspire and engage middle and high school students, and really, again, empower them to feel like they can take action and give them the skills to do that. So we're also dropping that link into chat so you can download the guide, and we'll also share that with you by email. Um, all right, let's go ahead. We've got some time, and let's go ahead and take a couple questions. Okay, Tom. so, uh, we know that it's not just students that need to use these skills, it's also adults. Do you have any suggestions for how to loop families in on maybe using some of these practices at home, within their family units, but also in their interactions with educators?
Mhm. Yes, well, our social emotional learning programs that we've created, and Morningside Center partners with schools to implement programs. And of course, it involves instruction for the students. So we support the teachers in doing that, but we also uh, support parents. So, if there's a parents association at the school, we do presentations for the parents association. The parents do some of the same exercises, like, for instance, the Have a Heart exercise that I described, and they do it with each other, and parents just find it so. Parenting can be a pretty isolating process sometimes, and so to
Yeah.
join with other parents and share their challenges and then learn some skills. Sometimes the students will help us facilitate uh, workshops for the parents, and
Oh, that's
that's
amazing. I love
that's
that.
yeah, particularly powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's great.
these skills are so important for parents to have, and that's part
They
of
are.
our
I think the
work.
point you made about, parents often feeling isolated, I mean, I think it's somewhat at the heart of so much of things, like, we need that community, we need that safe space to talk and share ideas and, um, express ourselves, so, yeah, offering that, through your family groups, at school is great, so, good suggestion. Um, let's see. How do you think about modifying these strategies for some of our younger elementary students? We need to teach these strategies obviously from the youngest age, but communication abilities, um, and how in touch younger students may be with their feelings obviously differs as children grow up.
Mhm. Yes, well, I understood that the audience today was mostly 4th grade to, uh, 12th grade, but, Morningside Center's programs go pre-K to 12th grade, and I actually, have, 2 grandchildren, one who's 4, one who's 6, and, uh, the strategies, the exercises that, I, uh, described today can definitely be, adapted for those younger grades, um, and, the in my vision for climate justice education, um, the areas that are most relevant to the young children are the first two components of social emotional learning. Uh, that's what education with young children, especially like pre-K and kindergarten, is about. It's like working
Mhm.
uh, together, sharing, and building a community where we treat each other well, right? And the other one, of course, is getting kids out into nature and as a foundation for understanding and loving nature. So for the youngest kids, it's social emotional learning and uh, understanding and loving nature that are crucial, and definitely many of these strategies can be adapted. And visit Morningside Center for Teaching Social Responsibility, their website, because the curricula are available, and support for running programs are available.
Oh, that's a great tip. And I think the tip, whether for our littles, all the way to our oldest adults, just getting out in nature is going to make you appreciate it and love it. And I think there's so many lessons we learn about communication and community when we're out in nature. So I think that's a great added strategy to the ones that you shared. We're
Mhm.
getting close to our time together, but I'll just go to one last question. And that's you had mentioned, particularly like with the listening circles, that if students don't want to participate, that's fine, and we want to be respectful of that and give them that space. But do you have any suggestions for encouraging students to maybe dip their toe in the water, because it's often those students that don't want to participate that may actually benefit most from participating?
Mhm. I think it's, uh, a listening circle is a pretty heavy emotional uh, experience. And to prepare kids for that, other things need to happen first. So, let's start with everybody knowing each other's names, right? Let's let's go on to uh, those other uh, games, where we're just affirming, you know, somebody to get their name shouted out, uh, and the same, and then no put downs, and community agreements, so that young people feel a sense of trust,
Mhm,
that what they are shared is nobody's going to make fun of them,
mhm.
or break the confidentiality. Um, and so um, that's, I think, the best way to encourage everybody to take part. But then it's absolutely essential not to try to push people who still don't want to take part, because that's not a safe thing to do for them. There could be some reason, despite all you've done to create a caring community, if there's someone who's still not willing to share, it could be they've experienced some kind of trauma or something. So you got to be very careful with that, and just sort of respect that. And we've had people who will not participate for uh, uh, for a number of sharings, but then finally they do stick their toe in the water, and they get involved. But we have to respect their own timeline for that.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think those suggestions for kind of warming people up and making it, not making your first listening circle this really intense, deep, personal topic. But I mean, like you said, from one of the other activity, the discussion activity of, warming up with discussions around favorite ice cream flavors. Giving giving people really low stakes conversation items to
Right.
start with, so that when the big stuff comes around, you've got some practice around it and can feel maybe safer. So, well,
Mhm.
we've reached the end of our time together. I hate that, because this has been so wonderful. You've been so much fun to chat with, and we appreciate your being here with us today. I do want to thank One Step for bringing Tom with us and for sharing all of these great strategies. In addition to that community engagement guide that we shared, you also have the opportunity to participate in a 90-day free trial of One Step, and you'll have access to all of the great videos that are showing solutions to climate change, standards align. Lesson plans, more project ideas, and a really cool carbon tracker that empowers students to take action in their own lives. So, we encourage you to learn more about One Step and sign up for that 90-day trial. It's a great supplement, particularly as you come out of spring break and head towards that slog to the end of the school year. There's some great videos and things like that that can really excite kids and keep them excited and learning till we get to the end of that school year. So, thank you again, Tom, for being with us. Thanks
Mm.
everybody for joining us today. We really always appreciate your participation. Everybody, please enjoy the rest of your afternoon or evening wherever you are, and thank you for all the hard work you do to support students, educate students, and generally make this world a better place. We appreciate you.